There's two other things that I just want to add here. I think the other part of it is winning a Super Bowl with another team. So you have that absolute continuity and the dynasty, but then being able to go win it with another team. The other concern I have for Patrick, and to me this is real, is as you get older, time catches up with you and your ability to scramble and move declines. With Tom, it was never an issue because that was never part of his game. With Patrick, that's such an important part of what he does that I wonder as time goes on and hits pile up and age, can he have the same sort of progression? It never affected Tom because it was never something he relied on. Yeah.
Dusty, can we put up my Mahomes graphics from early in his career and these last 2 years? And Nick, I'm going to come with a thesis that I think is a little unfair, but it will get a reaction out of you. I wrote, you can't Chris Bosh your way to the GOAT. And what I mean by that is, early on, it was showtime. And I think he was playing with a joy and real fun. And we've seen him these last 2 years prioritize winning, maybe in viewing the light show and the amazing arm almost, and putting that in the back seat because those things are in conflict.
Yeah, so I disagree with that last part. I think the last 2 years, if we put that back up, because one of the left column included the first year of what would have been a three-peat. 2022, they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He won league MVP, all of it. I think in 2023, they had what ended up being the worst receiver room in the league. Right. And I think this year, they had what ended up being the most injured offense of any playoff team. And I think that despite that, he was able, the defense the path was defense keep it close, Patrick will win it in the end. I think what you saw when they drafted Xavier Worthy in the first round, who weighs less than I do and is the fastest player ever, they were trying to bring it back, but then Hollywood Brown gets hurt in the preseason, Rashee Rice gets hurt in week 3, and they change who their offense is.
But I think the injury issue, as that part of the argument, really works against them in the Super Bowl. Because they were as healthy as anybody. And they got all these weapons. To me, I thought that was such a huge part of the disappointment.
I totally agree. There's no defending. I'm not defending the Super Bowl itself. I was just talking about the.
No, but I think he needs to be
himself.
And in these last 2 years.
What you're saying might be favorable. I think he's been trying to be that. And he hasn't been. For Raymond on the receivers, the offensive line, he hasn't been able to do it. This year, he came in wanting to win MVP.
No, and he couldn't.
It's like these little passes.
But I think that you look at the moves, and then Dust, if we can just quickly show my two graphics in a second. But I think you don't go out in the off. They didn't go out in the offseason and sign a third tight end. They signed Hollywood Brown. Yeah. They didn't go out in the offseason and draft a tackle. Maybe they should have. They drafted Xavier Worthy. You know what I mean? Like last year, they won despite the receivers. This year, they were going to try to win in concert with them. It didn't work out that.
Yeah, listen. We can't have it both ways. Okay? You can't be crying about the receivers, about this and that, when for the last couple of years you said that this is the greatest team of all time. You just can't say that this is the greatest dynasty. That this team can go undefeated. And this is with the injuries. This is knowing and understanding the injuries. Okay? And then even when they get all these guys back, they actually add now extra DeAndre Hopkins, Kareem Hunt. They're going 1 minute when everybody was trying to say, hey, does this team really look that good? People were ripped, especially myself, were ripped for it. Being a doubter, a denier, a hater, oblivious, delusional. This is the team, they have the best record in the NFL. They're the back-to-back champions. Imagine, doubting them. You're a clown. Like just an onslaught. Oh, you just have Chiefs fatigue. You're jealous. You're envious. You're this. You're that. And now they lose. And you want to say, well, it's because of these injuries. It's because of this. Because of that. They had the worst receiving corps. Okay. It's kind of absurd. It really is. And it's beyond just that. Because Patrick Mahomes has just not been playing great, regardless of the weapons. His decision making has been bad. His throws earlier on in the season, when Rashee Rice was still there and whatnot, he's still throwing interceptions at a high clip. And the interceptions, it have nothing to do with the weapons. Nothing to do with it. They're bad throws and bad decisions by Patrick Mahomes. It's not like he's throwing these 50-50 balls and that if he had a better wide receiver, they would be able to come down with it. And if you want to make the argument that he's still throwing these 50-50 balls, well, then it's a bad decision to throw a 50-50 ball to a wide receiver that can't get the job done. So, like, no matter how you slice it, And it's just we keep twisting ourselves up here, and it's just kind of absurd at this point. It really is. And when they were winning, because this is all stuff that I had been calling them out for the last year and a half or so, the middle of 2023, then into this past season, and it was easier for someone like Nick and fans for that matter to be like, well, we're winning, so who are you to say what you're saying? And it was a little bit harder to push back against that because you're like, yeah, you are winning, but, and no one ever wants to hear the but. And it's like, right, cry harder. And I get why fans and even people like Nick or whatever, like, are emboldened by that because like, we're the repeat champs, even though I thought it was still wrong. And now this take ends up being 100% correct. And yet now you're trying to be like, yeah, but it's all this other stuff. If you want to admit that it's all this other stuff, then it invalidates all your other arguments for the last couple of years. So again, be my guest, do that. Why was it that in 1 minute on February 8th, or, the day before the Super Bowl, why was this one of the greatest teams in the history of the NFL? And now that they lost suddenly, it's, well, they don't really have great weapons, and, well, their O-line, and, well, how does that happen? That does not make sense. And again, DeAndre Hopkins was there. Hollywood Brown was there. Like, Worthy was there. And Nick Wright, even going into this season, was praising Worthy. He was talking about how Worthy's going to be absolutely amazing for the Kansas City Chiefs. And how Andy Reid's a genius with it. And how this season, they're just practicing with each other. Oh, Worthy's not balling out because they're just practicing. They're just working on some stuff. They treat regular season games as practices. You can't have it both ways. You just can't. And, here's the other big issue. Believe Patrick can still catch Tom. Here's this.
Andy Reid thing is real. Is that I could see Andy with 2 more great runs and just say, listen, man, I got 4 or 5 of these things. I'm out. And then, as you know, even the great organizations miss on head coaches 50% of the time. Is there part of you that wonders the Andy thing is what worries you more than players?
Listen, I mean, 1,000%. And Patrick, leading up to the game, when he was asked, basically, how long can this keep up? His answer was, as long as Andy's still here.
Yeah.
The whole team, you know what I mean, it gives him the respect and credit he deserves.
Yep. And that's the massive thing. And it's really funny because I was getting in a conversation with someone in the comment section, and they were like, we were talking about something, and I shared an opinion, and they said, well, Mahomes said this, so you know more than Mahomes. And I've always talked about how important coaching is and Andy Reid. Now Mahomes himself says, this will go as far as Andy Reid. And so, do you know more than Mahomes? You tell me. You tell me. Andy Reid is an absolute crucial part to this dynasty, to this greatness of Patrick Mahomes. It's a real thing. Now, I've talked about this as well. Bill Belichick was absolutely crucial for Tom Brady's success. Not only for winning rings because he had a defensive head coach, the best defensive head coach in a defensive era, so that's obviously going to help. Obviously, just also from a situational game standpoint of obviously, right, having lower scores, field position, whatever it may be, obviously having a better defense is going to help you out. But also, Tom Brady talked extensively about how on a weekly basis, him and Bill Belichick would get together, and pretty much Bill would be like, "This is how I would beat you," like this is what I would do. So you have the best defensive coach pretty much being like, "This is how I would beat you," and so it's iron sharpening iron and whatnot. But that's all extra, right? Those are undeniably beneficial, massively beneficial. Again, massively. But at the end of the day, if you removed Bill Belichick, which we saw him because he went to Tampa, it's not going to change, it's not going to change the way how he gets settled in the game, the mechanics, how he reads defenses, etc., because the actual game plan itself of how to now attack a defense, what to do in the game, the play calling, how to work with this receiver versus that receiver, whatever it is, was not reliant on Bill Belichick. And so Tom Brady was able to kind of have this fluidity. And again, he went on to go win a Super Bowl. I mean, like, the proof of that is, like, he literally went on to go win a Super Bowl. The reality is that having such an amazing offensive head coach like Andy Reid really be attached at the hip to Patrick Mahomes from the jump, it would be a significantly huge loss for Mahomes. Now, again, what I'm not saying is that Patrick Mahomes is nothing without Andy Reid. What I'm not saying is that Patrick Mahomes would still not be great if it wasn't for Andy Reid. I believe that Patrick Mahomes would be having careers of that of Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and I think he would be better than Lamar because I just think he has a better understanding of the game than, say, like a Lamar. So I think Lamar would be actually at the lower end of that, but Lamar is able to overcome some of that because his athleticism is just like through the absolute roof. But I think Patrick Mahomes is just a more settled quarterback. But who knows? Maybe coming into if Patrick Mahomes never had Andy to help him get settled and situated, maybe he is even more reckless. But the way how I kind of see it is like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen would essentially be the same quarterbacks depending on who their coach was. And I stand by that. I really, really stand by that. And again, I'm out here telling you that I think Josh Allen is absolutely unbelievably amazing, and he did not have Andy Reid. And so I would still be able to say that, for Patrick Mahomes, but I just do not think Patrick Mahomes would have the amount of accomplishments that he had. And again, if you want to challenge me on that, well, then take it up with Patrick Mahomes. Take it up with Patrick Mahomes. He said it. He said it. And so that just, again, but what I'm not saying is that Andy Reid deserves all of the credit. And throughout both of their careers together, the blame and the praise is always a moving kind of target. It's always kind of going up and down. Sometimes it's 70% Andy, sometimes it's 70% Mahomes. On certain plays, it's 100% Mahomes, and on other plays, it's 100% Andy. Like, it's not this all or nothing thing here. And actually, one of the best examples of this that always stands out to me is the AFC Championship game when Patrick Mahomes threw, I think it was to MVS, I forget exactly, but he throws a beautiful ball to ice the game. It was to convert the first down, boom, game over. And it was a beautiful call, a beautiful play call and play design that nobody really saw coming. And so it was absolutely perfect. But then also Patrick Mahomes needed to make a perfect throw in that moment as well, and it's like, and that's perfect. And then again, look no further also than just this last AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes was just having nothing but wide open plays, wide open drives, walk-in touchdowns, just easy. And that was the brilliance of Andy Reid. And then there's other moments where off the script, Patrick Mahomes takes over and does his thing. The problem is that over these last couple of years, Patrick Mahomes has those off the script type plays have just not been the same. And we saw that on full display in the Super Bowl. Like we just did. And so as he gets older, those off-script plays are going to get less and less and less because they do rely on his elusiveness, his mobility, his agility, his strength, etc., which will go on him. It just will. And so when you combine aging with losing Andy, yeah, it's an uphill battle. It just is. Things will absolutely get harder, not easier. It's just the reality. When for the reality of Tom Brady, things were getting easier for him as he was getting older because the game was now changing in a way that could help him thrive more because they're like, hey, we're going to protect you. And listen, what makes you great is not running around in circles. Like now you can attack the middle of the field. Now you can throw the balls to receivers in ways that you normally wouldn't have been able to do because they would have been concussed and knocked out of the game. And so it actually got easier for him in a lot of ways. Patrick Mahomes and all these other quarterbacks for that matter were born and raised in this era. But now as they get older, it's going to get harder. And again, I'm not arguing that Patrick Mahomes can't catch up to Tom Brady. This video is not me saying Patrick Mahomes has no chance at catching Tom Brady. Like that's not the video that I'm trying to make or the point that I'm trying to make at all. I think ultimately it's going to be interesting because it's kind of like there's some overlap with LeBron and Jordan, but for different reasons though than I've talked about in the past. So hopefully you can follow me here. Like Tom Brady is so enshrined right now, not unlike Michael Jordan, and he's done things at such a massive level. 7 Super Bowls out of 10, and his 3 losses were all close one score losses. Not to mention going to a completely different team and in that first year winning the Super Bowl and crushing Patrick Mahomes. Just imagine if Michael Jordan crushed LeBron James in multiple playoff series, including the NBA Finals. No, like there's just really, it doesn't feel like no matter how many records LeBron James breaks, nobody would ever let him live that down. And here's where it's kind of interesting, where there's like this weird kind of overlap, but then also like in the opposite direction. Tom Brady has all the accolades and the Super Bowl victories, but he also has the longevity factor in it as well. Now, LeBron James doesn't have as many rings as Michael Jordan, but LeBron James has the longevity factor. And so now that's where a lot of people are now like, hey, LeBron may never win another ring. And even if he does win another ring or 2, like even if he matches Michael Jordan, everybody will know that it's different, that he's not the true out. Like they just got Luka, they know, but they'll still be able to say the dude did it at 40, at 41. Like, and that's used for his argument. Mahomes necessarily doesn't have that going for him, but he has going for him the eye test, the magic that he's pulled out of, right? The concentrated success that he's had, especially early on in his career and all of that. So it's just like, even if he caught up to Tom Brady in terms of the pure number of Super Bowls, the problem is that Tom Brady, unless Patrick Mahomes is really able to play into his 40s, which I don't believe he will be, but and I think Patrick Mahomes pretty much has already said like he won't. Tom Brady still has some of these trump cards that he could just be like, I went 7 for 10 in the Super Bowl. I never lost big. I won with a completely different team, a completely different coach in year 1. I demolished you, in the Super Bowl. Like he just has too many. Not to mention Patrick Mahomes, it just doesn't feel like he's going to play long enough where he's now going to be able to be number 1 in all these categories. And again, to be clear, like when LeBron James is number 1 in all these categories, I'm like, well, yeah, he played until he was 75 years old. Like, of course he's going to, like those are longevity stats. And it's the same thing with Tom Brady. Those are longevity stats. And it's like, it's always tough to put into context when you're talking about greatness because, what's great? If someone plays for, let's use extreme numbers. If someone was able to play for 40 years, and again, just follow me. If they were able to play for 40 years, but they only won like 4 Super Bowls, You know, 3 Super Bowls, but they did it at they played great, good to great their entire career. Nothing too extraordinary. They weren't having these 5,000-yard seasons and 50 touchdowns, but they just played good to great for literally 40 years. Does that make you the GOAT? Or if you only played for 5 years and yet you won 5 Super Bowls in a row? But that's it. You played for 5 years, and then after that, you just tanked. And then you got banged up, and then you were Sam Bradford. You were just like in and out, and then eventually you were just out. Like what do we hold up to a higher regard? Because most people would say that Bo Jackson is one of the greatest baseball players and one of the greatest football players of all time to ever do it, and yet he's not seen as a Hall of Famer because he didn't have the longevity. So it's like, what do you value more? Where do you put the emphasis more? Because it's just I don't know. It's a tricky situation to have, which is why, you know, the conversation itself just feels less interesting to me, quite frankly, because then we're constantly trying to just force opinions in these boxes that we need to have in this moment of time. Right, because now we're trying to figure out how long will Mahomes play for? What will Mahomes look like when he ages? And we just don't have those answers, and so we just don't know. Is it really inconceivable to think that the Kansas City Chiefs can make a few moves and nail a couple drafts, and now they have an amazing wide receiver core with a great O-line and a really good defense, and now they can kind of just rip through teams again? Like, it's not hard to imagine. You know, like, and I don't know. Is it hard to imagine that Andy Reid goes and now this team like really struggles for a couple years until they can find a really good replacement? Is it hard to imagine that they hire a coach that ends up being, you know, not good? All of that stuff is possible. All of it is possible. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes' ability to potentially catch Tom Brady? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.